Well, if you are into numbers, percentages, and so forth, I've got some for you here. Over the past week at SEC Media Days, there's all of the data starts to come out, and here's what ESPN had to say about the chance to reach the SEC championship and then to win it. I'm going to do both in the same video. Okay, y'all can settle down otherwise. To reach the SEC championship game, according to ESPN, Oklahoma has a 12% chance to reach the championship game. 12%. LSU's got 13, Tennessee at 13, Missouri at 18, Alabama at 27, Texas at 44, and then the Dogs at 47. That's the chance to reach the SEC championship game. To win the Southeastern Conference, here's what ESPN Analytics has to say. They say 4% for LSU, 5% for Tennessee, Oklahoma with 5% as well. What is 5% of 0? Missouri with 6% chance to win, Alabama with 14, and then Texas with 24%. They give Georgia a 1-3 chance at 33% to win the Southeastern Conference Championship. I'm not sure how Oklahoma has worse odds, analytically speaking, to get to the SEC championship game, but then to win it than to LSU and LSU specifically. I'm not sure that, like, if I were the human involved on these things, I would ask those questions. I would say, how is it possible that they have a better chance to reach, that they have a worse chance to reach the SEC championship game than LSU? They have a worse chance to get there than LSU, but they have a better chance to win it once they get there. Like, did they play really well in Atlanta? Because the last time they played in Atlanta, LSU whipped their ass bad. I remember that. Joe Burrow was flinging the ball to Lawrenceville on them. I mean, that was nasty. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to get started on that. Georgia with a 47% chance to get to the league championship. I think it might be higher than that. I'm not sure. These are so challenging. I mean, you know, with Alabama at 27%, I think that if you're betting on this, your best value bet is Missouri. I'm just going to tell you right now, Missouri can totally get to the SEC championship game. I do not anticipate that Missouri will win the SEC championship game in any scenario, but I do. I think it is not at all out of the realm of possibility that Missouri plays in the SEC championship game. I think that they are at 18% is probably not that far from right. I think it's but I cannot believe what I believe and then have Alabama at over a quarter at over a quarter's chance to get there. So one of those doesn't reconcile because they play one another. Obviously, Georgia's biggest path, y'all, is the schedule, the road schedule specifically. And you know that you're playing your toughest 3 games. They're all SEC games on the road against top 10 teams coming into the season. You know, you're not going to lose 2 of those games and get to Atlanta. So they're basically saying here, ESPN's analytics, they got a 50-50 shot of going 2-1 in those games and getting to Atlanta. It may be though that everybody is 10-2. I mean, you could completely have a scenario where a lot of teams are 10-2. Like Texas could be not, they could be 10-2, but 7-1 in the league. That's completely possible with their loss being to whoever. I mean, like it could be to Georgia, and then everybody else has 2 losses. But what I just said a second ago, I don't believe that. If they're 10-2, they will have likely beaten Georgia, beaten Michigan, and lost a couple along the way somewhere. Their Texas schedule is not that bad. It's the Michigan game on the road that's so challenging. But in the SEC, their schedule is not that bad at all. But I think, Ben Watson was saying, he says, Georgia has a gauntlet of a schedule. I don't think anyone thinks it's going to be easy. And then we had Greg McElroy saying the thing people aren't talking about are Georgia's schedule. Dude, everybody's talking about Georgia's schedule, Greg. I mean, like if you just look at it, it's really difficult. It doesn't. That is the talking point of the offseason with Georgia is this schedule is brutal. if one of the two, let's just say you swapped Tennessee, you did a back-to-back to Neyland, and you were hosting Ole Miss again, like, that wasn't going to happen. But let's just say, then that would have been, that would have been more equitable, I guess you could say. No, going to Neyland, though, is a very difficult game. We're just in a different time now. We're in a completely different time. And the best way to keep up with everything is signing up for our newsletter. It doesn't cost anything. I don't want you to miss out on stuff. Practice starts in a week at Georgia. Okay, and we're going to have you completely covered. But the number one way to get everything, and it doesn't cost you a penny, we got TikTok, we got Twitter, we got MySpace, we got all the stuff you need, okay? But this comes right to your phone. It's easy. You're reaching, we're reaching tens of thousands of people with the push of a button. You're going to want to make sure that you're one of those folks, okay? Get on the newsletter today. But this is just a different time, different space, different situation than we've had in the past. In the past was, are you going to beat Florida and Tennessee to get to Atlanta? Probably are you going to beat Florida, Tennessee, and probably Auburn to get to Atlanta. We don't have that now. We have just a complete merry-go-round of insanity, and no one can tell from week to week what's going to happen. Alabama's path to the SEC championship is not an easy one either. And I think there's no simple way to get there. There are landmines everywhere for all of the teams. And, for Georgia, at least they know, you're not closing with top 10 teams like they did a season ago. You have to think about it. Georgia in November, when guys were hurt, Georgia in November played Missouri, top 10 at the end of the year, Ole Miss, top 10 at the end of the year, Alabama, top 10 at the end of the year, Florida State, top 10 at the end of the year. They went 3-1 in those games. Now, none of them were on the road. So, but I look at this chart of, Alabama, they got to host Georgia. They got to go to Tennessee. They host Missouri. They play LSU. They can lose all of those games. They could lose all 4 of those games. They won't. But they could lose all 4 of those games. They're a dog to Georgia. They're probably a 4-point favorite against Tennessee, maybe 6 against Mizzou. They are a dog to LSU. I know that. I don't think Alabama's losing to Oklahoma or Auburn, but they got to go to Oklahoma. You look at Georgia, they got to go to Alabama. They got to go to Texas. They got to go to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is probably the most manageable of those things, and Ole Miss can really score. So, if you can get a split with Alabama and Texas, if you're Georgia, you're not going to go undefeated every regular season anymore. That's out. And they just did that 3 seasons in a row. So you'll excuse me if that. LSU, you got Ole Miss at home. You got to go to A&M. You host Alabama, and then you close with Florida, Vanderbilt, and then Oklahoma. You look at Ole Miss. What's the situation with the Rebels? They can lose to Kentucky. They host Kentucky. They got to go to Baton Rouge. They host Auburn. They host Oklahoma. I don't think they're going to lose to Arkansas. They got to go to Arkansas. They host Georgia, and then they close with the Gators at the Swamp, and then Mississippi State. Florida can beat them down there. They won't, but they can. And then the other ones I've been talking about, you've got Missouri has a great schedule. They got to go to Texas A&M, so that's challenging. They host Auburn, and then they play Alabama in back-to-back. Challenging, for sure. And then they got Oklahoma at home. And then they close with 3 very manageable games. At Carolina, State on the road, and then with Arkansas at home. They should win all those games. And then Texas, I'm going to talk about Tennessee and A&M too, but Texas has a very manageable schedule. Their challenge is the back-to-back with Georgia and OU. They play in Dallas against OU. They host Georgia. Well, they have spent all of their energy on Oklahoma. I don't know. I don't know what that rivalry's like. It looks insane. I don't know what it's like. And then they close with 4 games they should win, but they're going to be harder than people think. They got the Gators at home. They got to go to Arkansas. I think that game will be live. That is my, you better watch it game. They host Kentucky. They can lose that game. I don't think they will. And then they got to go to A&M. A&M, on the other hand, this is very manageable. They got to host Mizzou. They got to host LSU. And then, they got to host Texas. They go on the road to the Swamp. They play Arkansas and Arlington. A&M getting the job done wouldn't be shocking, but the problem is they got a first-year head coach. So, and then for Tennessee, we'll know pretty quick. I think with Tennessee, the great part about Tennessee's schedule is it's a lot like Georgia's. You've got 3 basic quadrants of the thing. They play NC State week 2 in Charlotte. That'll tell you a lot. And then 2 weeks later, they go to Oklahoma. If they get out of that 4-0, which they probably will, then Tennessee's a team to monitor. But then they have a trio of games. They can win all these games. I don't think they'll beat Alabama, but they got to go to Arkansas. They host the Gators in a back-to-back with Alabama right behind that. They're both in Knoxville. But then the close, the close is not simple. They host Kentucky. They host Kentucky and State. Then they go to Georgia, and then obviously pretty easy at the end, UTEP and Vanderbilt. But it's Tennessee. I don't see a lot of losses for the Vols here. But I don't think they're going to beat Georgia and Athens. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama. And then, I don't know what else is out there, but they can totally get into the playoff. I mean, in my view. But we're just, you start talking about these percentages. I've gotten off the subject here. Missouri is your value play. If you're betting, Missouri is your value play. It's all there for Missouri. Could they go undefeated? I mean, I don't think so. I don't know. No, I don't think so. But, at A&M, challenging. I don't know why they're playing at Massachusetts. That's a really stupid decision by the athletic department. You're sandwiching that game you're going way up across the country to go up to play a game in Amherst, Massachusetts, while in the midst of playing A&M, Auburn, and Alabama in back-to-back-to-backs. I mean, that's not smart. So they probably will have more trouble with Auburn than you think at home, and then you got to go to Tuscaloosa. They're not surviving that 4-game stretch. You're going to A&M, you're going to Alabama, you're going across the country to play at UMass for no good reason at all. They should try to see if they can play that game on a Friday night or something. And then, with Auburn and Columbia, they should win that game. But it's manageable for Missouri. It's manageable. And then you've just got straight on power, the hammer that is Georgia. Can they just hammer through this thing? Could Georgia go undefeated? Yeah, but it just, with the way the schedule is, it's a lot. And I mean, everybody's well aware that it's a lot. And this is a really good team. Are they generationally good? They haven't proven that yet. The offense could be really good. The offense should be really good, and we're just going to have to see. Thanks for watching.